Video game sequels sure are cool. You get to bring back your heroes and take them on a whole new adventure. But more often than not, they suffer some massive nerf. It's understandable. We can't start every game super duper strong with all the fixins. You gotta start the game with the output of a AA battery. Though sometimes, games do it right, and explain what happened and why you're so weak. Such as, say, Samus, losing her powers after having her powers sapped by an alien bird ghost thing, or something like that. I don't know, I'm not a Metroid expert. But anywho, one question often comes up. What happens to Mega Man's power-ups? Well, we do have some official answers, though they can be hard to find. So let's dig into the mystery of losing your power-ups. In the original Mega Man, you'd battle your way through hordes of bots, you'd brave pesky jumps with disappearing blocks, and avoid spikes, all to face off with another robot that looked pretty similar to you. And after a few attempts, throwing your controller against the wall and pleading to some higher power, Mega Man would persevere, and gain a whole new ability by snatching the boss's weapon chip from its cold, scrapped hands. The boss powers are awesome. Everyone loves using them, but are always stumped as to where do they go? Why wouldn't Mega Man keep them? You know, just in case. Well, we kind of have an answer to that one. An old Capcom magazine gave us some insight with an incredibly wholesome answer. Rock takes great care with other robots' IC chips, aka their brain, so that they're not damaged. Now, I have no idea how one carefully drops a barrage of meteors on someone as to not harm them, but whatever. It's fiction. Have a sense of disbelief. So with these parts not damaged, the goal is to rebuild the robots. And we can see that happen. All signs would then point to the weapon chips being returned to the rebuilt robots. We see robots in the Robot Museum on full display, and they clearly are complete enough to function, as Wily steals a Guts Man and uses him. King then later returns and steals data in order to build his robot army, which would be kind of pointless if it didn't have the weapon chips, I'd say. In other cases, we see Light's robots provide Mega Man with their own chips, being clear as day that they had regained them. We have Super Adventure Rockman to thank for that, but we can also see a few of these guys showing off in other titles, like Mega Man 8 for example. Cutman, and Woodman for that matter, show up out of nowhere and are ready to battle. And there's also a very likely chance that Mega Man can't hold on to that many to begin with. Taking a look at the Oddball Genesis game, Wily Wars only allows for so many weapons at a time, forcing you to build a loadout of the acquired special weapons. So while our good boy Rock seems to return the powers, what about his successor? What about X? Mega Man X took the series into a whole new world. Focused more on a dark story, and the days of robots simply getting rebuilt were gone. In fact, doing so becomes illegal. Once again, special weapons are ditched in between games, but why? Well, unlike Classic giving us an idea as to what happens, the X games never state anything outright. Source books leave it out, and the games never dive into such a subject. The subject becomes more of a talking point when you factor in X's boss fight in Mega Man X5. Here he throws out charged versions of X4 weapons like confetti. This has led many to headcanon and speculate, but one source of media does give us some insight as to the most likely reason we, the players, don't get to use them. Other than, gameplay reasons. The novel Rockman X Irregulars report has X using the chips as anyone would, but after so much stress, they burn out, becoming a charred lump of scrap that's ejected from his buster, pretty much looking like a marshmallow you held over the campfire for too long. So much like we, the players, can only use the weapons until they run out of power, X himself has the same issue, except that when his are depleted, it's permanent. While on the topic of X, he does have another power-up that raises more questions, and requires an answer. Why does he start each game as his naked blue self? Throughout the adventure of each game, you gain a sweet armor that you power yourself up with. Why lose it? While it's often assumed that the armor is damaged throughout the battles, and in some cases that can be true, there's more to the story, mostly from the early days. X's first few armors are all returned to one of Dr. Light's capsules, where it then sinks underground and remains hidden, while it analyzes the armor's combat data. Source books will conflict one another as to what the exact specifics of this case are, either the AI Light upgrading the armor, or the armor itself evolving into the next one. In either case, the first 4 armors are all technically one and the same. It's not till X5 that they started adding some flavor to them. You start X5 with the 4th armor, but it's not quite the same. The armor was badly damaged by the end of X4, and Aelia in all her glory had to recreate it, building an imperfect replica. Said replica can even be seen getting trashed if you so choose to take 0 for the start of the game. Likewise in X6, the Falcon armor returns, but it's also not quite the same. It was damaged in the last fight against Sigma, and caused it to lose a few functions here or there. Aelia was able to repair it some, but due to time restraints, she couldn't perfect it, and thus, it lacks what made it truly great: flight. And unfortunately, that's where the lore of a lot of what happens to the armor ends. It makes no mentions of the fates to say Blade, Glide, and there's no X9, so who knows what happened to the Cone of Shame armor. If you want to take the X Challenge double boss battle as a factor, for the record I don't, X can, and does, change out of those armors on the fly, so he could still have access to them. The rest of the series, I'd say overall do a better job of explaining what happens to your gear between games. Zero gets wrecked in between 0-1 and 0-2, his gear and body deteriorating from battle. Meanwhile in 3, Zero just starts a mission without his gear. Simple as that. We didn't get a reason in the last title, but with the layout of Z4, it seems Zero just left his toys at home. Because he can just, jack whatever he wants this time around. And if you're curious about his Cyber Elf power-ups, the game punishes you for using any, because Lord forbid you make the game even slightly easier for yourself if you're a casual player like me. But to me that would indicate that Zero just doesn't use elves. Z Extra straight up gives you a whole new character. I really don't know what you want me to say about this one. Vet and Hale got robbed? That happened? Mega Man Legends though, oh man, this is the worst offender of them all. Between the games, Roll, your trusted partner, sells all your gear. Look at that smirk, not even a hint of remorse. After charging you a buttload of zenny for upgrades on gear that you dug up, she then doubles down by profiting off of your gear that you paid her for. Are we sure she's not the biggest bad in Mega Man? Because seriously, Roll, what the This is some super villain level scheming. Not even the Bonds are that greedy.
We may be pirates, but we're not barbarians. We'll let them keep the toilet paper.
Yes, sir!
Battle Network and Star Force are our last ones to look at, and much of it is show, not tell. Where does that 300-something standard library go between games? Well, we can assume Lan is pretty dumb and blew them all on a chip trader, because I would. The likely answer is incompatibility. The PET changes often, so the likelihood of new chips being needed to work with it is pretty high. And then in the later games, the actual chips change altogether, indicating that there is in fact some incompatibility. Be this the full truth or not, it's the most we can infer with what we're given. Mega Man's additional abilities though are never really explained, and we're just here to assume the new power-ups are just superior. Style change is the big one. And while many believe that Mega Man lost it after Alpha came in and whooped him, he retained Style Change in Battle Chip Challenge, and I'd argue he has it in 6 with the e-reader cards. Star Force has the same issue of the chips, but this time with battle cards. While the PET equivalent changes, the battle cards remain the same throughout all 3 games. But as for upgrades, well, thankfully, we have that. After the first game, the big 3 satellites are decommissioned, having served their purpose, and the admins travel back to their planet. They were the source of the Star Force, and with them gone, well, I guess you know how that goes. The second game's tri-power is pretty well covered in the plot. The artifact empowering Omegasis gets yoinked partway through the game, and the power just fades away over time. And so that's really the gist of Mega Man's various upgrades. Unfortunately, some are not really explained. So as Capcom likes to tell us, it's up to the fans to use their imagination. What theories do you have on the unexplained? Let me know below. I love hearing all sorts of takes. Until next time though, rock on!